Good morning, everyone. I think we're just admitting everyone uh, into the meeting, so we'll just wait for just a moment. We'll give it to 9:31. Okay, 9:31. Okay, good morning, everyone. I welcome you to the Rural Ontario Development ROD Program information session. And this session this morning is for the business development stream. I'm Crystal Ellis. I'm a regional advisor with the Ministry of Rural Affairs. And I'll let Carolyn, my coworker, introduce herself as well.
Hi everyone, Carolyn Peterborough. I work as a Rural Economic Development Advisor as well, and Crystal and I will be delivering your session today.
Great. So we'll just get right into it and go to the next slide. There we go. So we'll start with a territorial acknowledgement. Today we recognize that all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people. I'm participating today from Guelph, Ontario, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, and Andijanwara people. Located within the Between the Lakes Treaty Number 3, the lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. My own upbringing on a farm in rural Ontario had lessons of respecting and caring for the land and lending a helping hand whenever we were able. I'm committed to showing gratitude, patience, and kindness in the work that I do, how I interact with nature, people, and our communities. And I encourage you all to find your own time to learn about your communities and the history that it has. So our session today, we're going to do an overview of the business stream program and maybe just a little bit of a general ROD program overview. We'll talk about the business stream and the different sections of it. We'll share the ROD program resources and we'll have some question and answer periods throughout. So if you have questions, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom. So you can insert your question there, and then we'll either respond to it in that typing the response back, or we'll verbally respond to that question. We're recording the session, so you'll get a copy of the session after, as well as a copy of the information that we're sharing too. So don't worry about that. And I think that those are my most important points. So we'll go to the next. So an overview of the Rural Ontario Development Program, or ROD. We provide a cost share funding to support activities that create strong rural communities in Ontario by funding projects that address barriers to economic development and broadly support government priorities. Build capacity to attract, retain, and expand businesses, to better position rural businesses to attract or retain investment, and to support jobs being attracted and retained in rural businesses and rural areas. The deadline for this intake is February 26th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we have 8 program outcomes that we've identified for ROD. Most important for the business stream, the key outcomes are jobs attracted and retained, businesses attracted, retained and expanded, and investments attracted or retained. So of the 8 outcomes that you see there, those are the key outcomes for the business stream. We also do consider that increased capacity and effectiveness for rural economic development, workforce challenges addressed, transformed and modernized community assets, regional partnerships is a little bit more focused in the community stream, addressing economic barriers, and so on. So those are the key elements to the program. So rural Ontario, lots of people ask the question, Eligible projects must take place in rural Ontario, or the majority of the benefit occurs in rural Ontario. And we define rural Ontario for this program as all Statistics Canada census subdivisions, including lower tier and single tier municipalities that either have a population of less than 100,000 people in the most recent Statistics Canada census of Canadian population, or they have a population density of 100 people per square kilometer or less, as identified in the most recent Stats Canada of population. So the census subdivision also subset the subdivision located in Northern Ontario. So if you're in Northern Ontario, you can apply, or a rural postal code within the areas considered urban that has a zero as the second character of the postal code that identifies a rural postal code. So there is a map on our ROD program page. So you can click on the map. You can see that visual. You can also input your address. So there's an example of that. You can input your address and it will tell you if it is rural or not. So that'll help. So you are required to be within that rural area to apply for the program. So we do have two different streams. The focus for the businesses is the business development stream. We also have the community development stream. That's for municipalities, not-for-profit, Indigenous communities, and nonprofit organizations, and local service boards. The focus for the business stream, this is for small businesses in rural Ontario and small brick and mortar businesses in rural Ontario with employees of 1 to 20 employees for those businesses. So the ROD program, the business stream, so the audience being those small businesses, they're projects to support small business to be economically sustainable, competitive, and diversify their markets. The streams 35% of a cost share of up to $10,000. So that's the amount of funding you're able to receive. The assessment for it is based on eligibility, and the funds will be allocated on a first come, first served basis. And it is also subject to the Minister of Rural Affairs approval. So that eligibility piece is a key element to applying for the program. We do have 4 intakes for the ROD program for this over this 2 years. So we've completed intake 1. This is intake 2. So it just opened January 19th and goes to February 26th at that 5 p.m. Closing date. So with the business stream, once your application is ready to go, please submit it so that it can have a look, and if there's any questions, those can be drawn back to you. And I'll pass it over to Carolyn to talk about the more of the details.
Great. Thank you, Crystal. So now I'm going to get into the details of the business development stream. We'll give an overview of the stream as a whole. We'll talk about who is eligible, and then we'll talk about the different types of project types. And once we get through that, we'll just pause for questions and answer any questions. And we did get some questions in advance, so I will go through those as well, and we can try to address any of the ones that were asked in advance. So for the ROD business development stream, so it's application based. So that means you have to complete an application on our website, which will provide links to all these resources. There is a link where you pull up a PDF form, you download that form onto your system, and that's what you complete to submit. It's eligibility criteria. So what that means is there's a number of eligibility criteria you must meet, and I will lay that out on a later slide of what we mean by that to be able to be eligible for the program. And funds are allocated on a first come, first served basis. So if we had an overwhelming response and we started processing, it would sort of go until the dollars were fully allocated for the projects. As Crystal mentioned, it's up to it's 35% of eligible costs up to a maximum of $10,000 in funding. So you're really looking at a project that is, I don't know the exact number in my head, but it's around a $30,000 project to qualify for that 10,000. There is a minimum size now of $1,000 that you're asking for from the province. So you're looking at around like a $3,000 project, right? In order to get that minimum. If you've had a successful application, so you've applied to ROD in the first intake, you were successful, you sign a contract, you funds are extended to you, then you're not eligible for this intake. So applicants can only have a maximum of one successful application under the ROD program. And for expenses for this program, if you were wanting to apply, your expenses need to occur between April 1st, 2026 and February 15th, 2027. So that's the time frame that you would have to complete the project for this intake. So let's talk about who is eligible. So first of all, the first sentence is really important. So a currently operating business are eligible applicants. So what do we mean by a current operating business? So it means that they're a registered for-profit business. It's operating in Ontario, has a valid business number with the Revenue Canada, the Canada Revenue Agency. You're actively conducting business activities. So you're producing goods or services or generating revenue or employing staff. And you have up-to-date financial statements to demonstrate operational history and financial viability. So we often get questions around startups. If I'm a startup, am I able to apply? You don't meet a startup would not meet the definition of a current operating business. So you have to be operating, you need to have that CRA, your number with CRA, and you're actively conducting business. So for the eligibility criteria that I talked about earlier, let's walk through them. The first is has 1 to 20 employees on its current payroll and for the duration of the project, excluding the owners of the business. So let's just break that down again. So you have a payroll, you're operating that payroll, have at least one person on that payroll, and it's not including yourself as a business, the owner of the business. If you're an Indigenous business, you're exempt from the minimum employee requirement. So you could be self-employed. But if you are self-employed and you don't have a payroll, you don't have anyone working for you on payroll, then you wouldn't be eligible. If you only employ contract staff, you wouldn't be eligible. So you need to have the at least one employee on your payroll for the duration of the project, and from when you apply for the duration of the project. You need to be physically located in rural Ontario. So Crystal had showed the definition of rural Ontario for this program. We have a map. It's really easy. You can type your address right in and see whether if you're in the green or I think there's a hatching, the yellow hatching, you're considered in rural Ontario. If you're not, then you wouldn't be eligible for the program. The next is paying agriculture, commercial, or industrial property tax either directly through rent or lease or is in a property that is exempt from property taxes. So you need to be paying some sort of tax essentially beyond residential where you're located, and that's the brick and mortar part of this portion. If you happen to be a business that is exempt from tax, so private theaters, for example, are exempt from tax, you would still be eligible because of that exemption. If you're located in, say, a university campus and the university doesn't pay tax, you could still be eligible because of that exemption. Indigenous businesses are again exempt from this requirement of paying the property, agriculture, commercial, or industrial property tax. The next one is you're not occupying a property that is considered solely residential under the municipality's official plan or zoning bylaw. So there's some sort of zoning that indicates it's a business that you're operating. Again, Indigenous businesses are exempt from this requirement. You need to be open or operating at the time of application. So if you're a seasonal business, for example, you need to be open and operating at the time of the application. A startup have to be open and operating. So if you're in that startup phase and not operating yet, you wouldn't be eligible. And you're in compliance with the applicable requirements of law. And there's lots of other details around levies or taxes that you're required to attest to when you're applying essentially to the program. So now we've gone over who's eligible. Let's talk about the types of projects that are eligible. And the one, I know a number of questions came in and ahead of time asking, what if I have 4 different things I want to do for this program? And with this program, you can have multiple project types. So you can do some market development activities, you can do some succession planning activities, you could do enhancing cybersecurity activities and accessibility improvements. You need to outline what you're doing in each of those and explain it, but you can have multiple project types within the application. So there's 4 different project types, and for this program, we're looking for market development. So these are projects that support small rural Ontario businesses to increase their competitiveness. Our second is enhancing cybersecurity. So that's projects to support small rural Ontario business to increase their cybersecurity. And I will go into examples of what I mean by these projects on the next few slides. Succession planning. So projects to support small rural Ontario businesses to increase their readiness for business succession. And finally, projects to support accessibility, to increase accessibility. So our accessibility improvements category. So there's 4 different project types. And let's talk about what we, examples of the types of projects it could be within the different project types. So within market development, some examples would be completing a market analysis or marketing plan, maybe developing new marketing or promotions, so maybe website design or promotions or advertising or that sort of thing. And implementation of a business or marketing plan to access or expand to a new market. So maybe that's trade show fees. You want to go to a trade show that's specific to your industry or something like that. You would like to go to, and exhibiting fees. The one thing to note with these expenses is they're specific to Ontario. So it's not going to be, it can't be a trade show in Dominican in the middle of March. It has to be after April 1st anyway. But so like it has to be in Ontario to support that. So just keep that in mind if you're interested in those sorts of that sort of project is expenses are limited to within Ontario. So let's talk about enhancing cybersecurity. So that could be implementation of activities to increase cybersecurity measures within a business. It could be an analysis of cybersecurity related to your business, or it could be training fees related to cybersecurity. So it's really to support these small businesses to become more cyber secure is what we're looking for in that one. For succession planning, which is our next category, it could be the professional fees to support succession planning for a business. So it could be a succession plan. It could be training related to succession planning. And when we get to the understanding the costs, we really encourage you to look at the program guidelines. So the program guidelines have a chart in the back that talk about the eligible and ineligible costs. And on the left, you've got the eligible costs for this program. And on the right, you have the ineligible costs. So it's fairly clear to have a look at. So yes, we can pay for professional fees for the business. No, we can't pay for, to buy a business or to put in new equipment in my business. So it's laid out in the expenses in that sort of way. And for the last project type, we've got the accessibility improvements. And this is really, the example projects here are really projects that improve accessibility infrastructure. So this is the only area within the program where equipment or limited minor capital type, small minor capital type projects would be eligible. So whether it's ramps or door openers or renovations to support accessibility, there are no other eligible expenses in this program that would pay for equipment if it's not related to accessibility, or pay for a renovation within a business if it's not related to accessibility. Okay, so just to help try to clear that up, because I know we had quite a few questions about that. And the final one around ineligible projects. So what would make a project ineligible for funding? Things like submissions with incomplete applications. You'll learn as we go through here. If you have costs in this eligible costs that are over $2,500, you're required to submit a quote with this application. So if you submit it and you don't have a quote, that would be considered an incomplete application, for example. Projects that don't meet the eligibility criteria. So maybe projects that aren't any of those four things I've talked about. They're not market development, they're not succession planning, they're not accessibility, and they're not cybersecurity. So that wouldn't meet the eligibility criteria. That they don't benefit a business in rural Ontario. So if it's maybe a business located in an urban area, we had a lot of questions last time. You know, we're a Toronto-based business, but we buy supplies from rural businesses. Are we eligible? No, the rural businesses be eligible. The urban business is not eligible for this funding. If you receive any other amount of provincial funding, there's no, we call this in government stacking, where there's no stacking allowed with other provincial projects. There is with federal funds if you had that opportunity. We don't fund debt restructuring. So if supporting financing or debt, fundraising, or regranting funds. So that means asking for the funds to be able to give them, say, to another business, as I described earlier. That's not an eligible project. Any lobbying is not eligible of any level of government. Projects seeking funding for major capital costs. So major capital costs are not something we fund within the program. If you looked through the guidelines, there's something right at the back called the glossary, and we define what a major capital cost is within that glossary. I forgot to pull it up, but essentially, like if you're digging outside of you're putting in hard infrastructure, so electricity or broadband or anything outside of the building envelope, that's definitely major capital, paving roads, those sorts of things. Okay. So you can look at the definition for the specifics there, but it's or the eligible costs often help lay that out. They have to become projects with the sole purpose of being compliant with the requirements of law, including accessibility. So we're looking to improve accessibility, but that's sort of the caveat. You're approving accessibility, but you're not becoming within the requirement of law. And we work with actually other ministries to help us determine if projects are helping to improve versus going into compliance. And seeking funding to ready a property for immediate or imminent sale. So obviously succession planning, you're getting a business ready for sale, but this is specifically around properties, like getting a property ready to sell. Okay, I think we got through. Oh, we were going to do eligible costs first. Were you going to do this one, Crystal, or was I going to do this one? Okay, I'll keep going. All right, so let's talk about eligible costs, and then we're going to pause for questions. And as I said, we do have a number of questions from ahead of time as well. So eligible costs must be reasonable and necessary for the project. They have to be incurred within the time period of this intake. So that's April 1st, 2026 to February 15th, 2027. They need to be incurred within Ontario. They have to be incurred by a process that's transparent and fair and promotes best value for money, paid to an arm's length third party, and they reflect the actual costs to the recipient less any costs, including taxes for which the recipient received or will receive a rebate. For example, if you are the type of business that gets a rebate for your HST, then you wouldn't be able to claim that, for example, right? You can't claim taxes typically within these programs. If you have questions and you're not sure whether something is eligible or not, you're welcome to reach out and we will provide contact information afterwards of how you can ask those questions. The ministry determination of eligibility is final. And if you do have access to federal funding, sometimes Community Future Development Corporations, for example, can provide federal funding. You can exceed 90% of the project's eligible costs. So you can't go over that amount of funding from between the province and the feds. Okay, now we've got to the question slide. So we've got a couple of questions, I think, in the chat.
Yeah.
And we do have our colleague Patrick, who is joining us as well, who he's can support with answers if we're unsure on any of them as well. So I think I'm going to uh, just answer a couple that came in through in advance. There was one around land acquisition of whether it was eligible. So no, land acquisition is not an eligible expense. And then they asked about capital asset acquisition as well, and really only minor capital related to accessibility of approved project expenses. So if you have accessibility projects, they could be a fit. If you're looking to build a new office, I see they just got a question in directly to me through chat. Like a new office is not eligible. It's only if you have an existing business and you are doing accessibility improvements. Would be the type of expenses that would be eligible for this program um, at this time.
There's a
Okay.
couple questions in the chat, and I can read them and you can answer them maybe, Carolyn.
Okay.
Can you tell me if religious organizations can apply for accessibility?
Okay, so for in the business stream, you have to be a currently operating business to apply. So a religious organization, I don't believe would meet that requirement of being a currently operating business. So that would be a fit with this program. We do have a community development stream. You're welcome to come to that webinar. It's later today. But it has with the community development, it's very different this program. It's a merit-based program, so it's scored on how well you're going to achieve those economic development outcomes that Crystal talked about at the beginning. So accessibility could be part of a project, potentially, if you're doing a rehab of something that's going to generate economic outcomes, but it can't be the purpose of the project. It's the business stream and the community development stream are very different.
Okay.
Uh, and we'll have to talk that.
Yeah.
Patrick, we might need your help for a question that I got sent to me. If I'll read it to you and then you can let us know is if you have provincially backed loans, not grants, does that make you ineligible? So I'll let Patrick ponder that one and let us know his thoughts. Uh, I'm not hearing Patrick coming up, but maybe one of the other, if there's another staff member from that team on, you could message me and let me know. There is a question also like send what is the payroll requirement? Is there an FT or an FT equivalent? There isn't in this program. We don't define employee, so we don't define whether it's an FT or not. Like an FT means full-time employee or a part-time employee. We don't do that. So you don't have to worry about that.
Oh,
Okay.
and it looks like Patrick's off mute now.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's all right. I called you out without much warning.
Yeah, no worries. I think in the case of a provincially backed loan, I do not believe that would be considered provincial funding. So it wouldn't be a direct provincial contribution to the project in question. However, if I think it would be more situational and maybe probably worth a follow-up with an MRA advisor in terms of getting the specifics. If the loan was directly related to the project in question. So for instance, installing an accessibility lift, for instance, and the business was granted a provincial loan to help with that, with that project, that would be considered provincial funding. So I think it all depends really on the details related to the loan itself.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And since you're on, we have another question in the live or the Q&A. What if our project needs something that is not available in Ontario? The company we purchased from is in BC and shipped from California. There is no Ontario option. Could you answer that question for us as well, Patrick?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So what we mean when we say incurred in Ontario isn't necessarily that the supplier is in Ontario, it's that the purchase itself was incurred in Ontario. So, for instance, if I'm sitting at my desk here in Guelph and I purchase something from Amazon, if that product gets shipped from China, that would still, under this program, be considered an expense incurred in Ontario. Where this really comes into play are sort of businesses with different sites or operations scattered across the country or across the world. And so, for instance, if your part of your business was located in Utah and you purchased something there and then shipped it to the Ontario site, that would be considered incurred outside of Ontario. But suppliers, there's no bearing on where those come from, as long as the purchase itself and the product that you're buying will be used in Ontario.
Yeah, great. Um, and just a few others that came in ahead of time. There was questions around vehicles. So uh, ineligible costs are, including vehicles, equipment, or machinery not related to accessibility. So vehicles wouldn't be something that would be an eligible cost typically. Is that correct there, Patrick? Unless related to accessibility, or are all vehicles out? I should have my my expenses open in front of me and I don't.
Yeah, I should as well, but generally speaking,
Yeah. Yeah. So I say generally we don't pay for things that no
yeah,
one else.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that would require, again, situationally, that would require maybe a closer look at the guidelines and maybe a conversation with an MRA advisor. But broad strokes, there's very few instances, I think, where transportation equipment would be eligible within this program.
And I had a question. I've answered one of those questions about requirements for quotes. So just looking directly at the guidelines, quotes and estimates need a category breakdown of all the mandatory project costs for over $2,500. And then you can provide those quotes either from a supplier providing those on their letterhead or a screenshot from a website, just indicating the business URL, that type of information. So that's right in the guidelines. And I've also got another question that came into my side. Would professional fees for updating shareholder agreements to implement succession planning be eligible?
Yeah, I don't see why not, right? As long as it
Part of the
meets the other
succession planning
eligibility. Yeah.
process. Okay. And the second question is whether the eligible projects change by intake. And they generally stay fairly
Yeah.
similar.
So
Same.
so this intake, we changed the wording in the marketing one, but we didn't change the eligible expenses beyond the travel. So there might be some minor changes between intakes, just depending. It's driven by a minister and what she wants to accomplish each time. So really, we look at the intake as it is right now. This is what's eligible. It is always subject to change if the minister makes that decision. But from the first intake to the second intake, the only, I think, expense that really changed was that now the travel for marketing activities have to be within Ontario.
And
Okay,
we
I
had
think
one other question
one
that I
more, and then we'll
just
move
put
on.
a link. Yeah, just for more detail on eligible expenses for the business stream. So I've just linked in the business development guidelines. So there is that appendices that shows you eligible and ineligible costs for each of those pieces. And yep, so when you
Yeah,
go
one
to
of
the
the issues.
website and you click on to the business development, yeah, use that sidebar, and you'll be able to see number 4 is eligible and ineligible expenses. So that should help with that determination for you.
So you can see here the professional fees it lays out, but what isn't. So there was, I think, a question in advance, like, could we get new office space? And you can see here, like, that's considered a normal business cost, so it's an ineligible cost item. So we've got it laid out. On the left, you've got what is eligible, and on the right, we have what is not eligible for this program. For example, so new software service fees, but if renewing the same software you've bought every year, then that wouldn't be eligible. Okay. You could have the design of a new website, but the hosting is not eligible. So it just lays it out on either side. No, the new computers are not an eligible expense for this program. So that just helps. And we're going to go a little bit more into, once we're done this Q&A piece, we're going to go into the application, or what you're required to provide for the application. So we just wanted to show you this because this is really important that you look at this before you fill out an application, because I think sometimes on the websites it's hard to navigate. So we're just trying to show what to expect when you're coming in. Okay, how about we'll move through, and then there's a few more questions that are popping up, and you're welcome to type them in, and then we'll take some more time at the end to answer more questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Crystal.
Perfect. So one of the elements of the application is a work plan. So the applicant must provide a detailed explanation of how the project will be successfully completed by filling out the project work plan and the budget templates that are in the application form. The project work plan should list each activity required to complete the project and the anticipated start and end date for each activity. Applicants are encouraged to attach those relevant supplementary documentation to support the application. So if there's any other pieces that explain what you're doing or give more detail, don't be afraid to include that as an attachment when you email in your application form. The budget, the project budget, you must list the specific eligible cost items associated with each activity that's in your project work plan. Some activities may have more than one eligible cost. So an example that we use is a trade show. So you would have the cost of the booth, printing of materials, like banners maybe, and marketing or promotion pieces too. So list those out with the cost. And list all your eligible costs. The projects, Carolyn had mentioned this too, you must request at least $1,000 for this program. And the applicant is encouraged to provide as much detail as possible about cost items and may attach more detailed budget documents with the application. Those quotes and estimates, and we can say this again, quotes and estimates should include a category breakdown. So specify all items per cost item and are mandatory for projects over $2,500. So quotes can be provided on that supplier letterhead or as a screenshot from the supplier's website. The screenshot, you just need to make sure you have the website URL and an itemized list of total. So really what that, almost like what your checkout would look like, I guess. So the selection process, so the funds will be allocated on a first come, first served basis to eligible applicants and projects. So step one is just meeting that basic eligibility criteria. An application must meet the following basic eligibility criteria to move on to stage two. You have a complete ROD program application and all of the mandatory documents received by the date and time indicated for the intake. So this is February 26th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You have to meet all of the applicant eligibility criteria, meeting all the project eligibility criteria, and the project takes place in and or the majority of the benefit occurs in rural Ontario. So once you've passed through that, it moves on to stage two, which is the approvals. All eligible applications that complete stage one will be reviewed by the Rural and Economic Development Advisory Panel, and they make non-binding recommendations. So we do have a process for that intake. They'll come in, they'll make sure you have all of those pieces. It moves along to the advisory panel that do a review, and then it goes to the Minister of Rural Affairs. and who retains the exclusive discretion and right to select or reject any of the applications, even if all the requirements are met, and may include considerations of whether the project aligns with government priorities, and reduce the cost share or reduce the maximum amount of funding that will be provided for those that are approved. So once that approval happens, then it goes to stage 3 after the approval stage, and the applicant will be notified of the funding decision when that's reached, and it's usually within three to 4 months from the posted intake closure. However, timing can vary. So how to apply, download and save the completed application form. So when you go on, you can click on the application form, but make sure you download that so that you're not just working from that page. So once you download it, fill out your application, you email it to rodprogram@ontario.ca, and that's indicated in the application with the completed application, all those quotes and estimates that are over $2,500. And then if attachments are too big, if you're over that 10 megabytes, just send 2 emails or 3, however many you need to send to get all of that content in. I would usually recommend saying your name with email 1 of 2, email 2 of 2, and then that way they can keep track of those together. And then the province will only assess completed applications received by the ROD program, and you will receive a confirmation email with an application number within 5 business days of the receipt of the application. So that's an important thing. If you've submitted it and you don't receive anything within that week, then check back in to make sure that everything is good. And then we're doing this right now, attending a ROD program information webinar. So we do have this also available in French later today at 1 o'clock. And then on February 12th, we'll be doing the same session in French and English. So if you have other people that you like to share this with, please do so. And we will be sharing this information back to you post event.
I wonder, Crystal, if we'll maybe do a few more questions before we do the evaluation at this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll just show you, we talked about that there's resources that we want to share with you. You can see here, so the program materials, you can find at ontario.ca/ROD program, and we will be sharing all of this with you afterwards as well. So you can find the program guidelines that I had shown a little bit earlier that shows the expenses. The business development application is there as well. You'll see a white box, and that's what for each of the guidelines and the application. And we will share a link to the recording. It just has to render, and so it takes that a little bit of time to do that, and then we'll follow up with everyone. The link to the map that we showed earlier. And then we also have a 1877 number as well as an email to help answer questions. We do also offer coaching. So if you have an interest in talking to somebody one-on-one, because sometimes some of the questions are really specific, so you need to have a chat to go through, you're welcome to click, I think Callie, our student, is going to put a link in the chat. You can schedule a one-on-one, or that is linked right from this ROD program page as well. And we can just work with you to go through your application and support you submitting one. Okay, there is a question in the chat around the dates are confusing. So let's go through some of that. I think Crystal's working on typing an answer as well. So let's go through what the dates are. So the deadline to apply, the latest you can apply for this intake is February 26, 2026 at 5 p.m. So if you would like to be in this, you have to apply for that date. It takes time to assess, to go through the eligibility. This goes through the panel, that REDAP panel that Crystal had talked about. and the minister needs to be able to see them to either approve or not approve the application. So that takes time. So the earliest you can incur expenses is April 1st, 2026. But I have until February 15th, 2027 to actually complete the project. So those are sort of the different pieces here, because there are a lot of different dates and we're throwing them out here and we're talking pretty fast, but just to sort of explain the timelines, that's the different timelines we're working on. Okay, let's look at some of the questions that are in the chat. And Ellen, I know you've asked a question at a business that is community and business. Can you stack? I don't understand what that means. I'll be honest with you. So I think I'm going to need you to give us more details, or like a registered nonprofit would be one category in community development. You could apply there, or as a currently operating business, you could apply there. There's really no crossover. It's one or the other, but I think you might mean something different. So you're welcome to clarify that for me. Ty, you have a question saying software renewal isn't included, but what about upgrades costs to current software? And I think we'd likely interpret that as new and eligible, that if you were trying to upgrade and improve your business related to one of the eligible project types, we think it would. But again, there's always an opportunity to reach out and chat to one of the advisors to be able to understand more about the project. There's a question from Tina. Is there more information on how to determine if a project is applicable? And really, like, I think that's where that link that's up on the screen right now to chat with advisors, you're welcome to do that, or you can send an email to the ROD program at ontario.ca, and you can ask questions trying to support applicants to be successful in this. So just feel free to reach out and ask. But I would start by reading those program guidelines, because they do lay out, the 4 different project types I talked about. It gives examples of the types of projects, and then it lays out the expenses that are eligible under this program. Let's see. Next.
There's a question about our annual farmers market fees for Toronto Farmers Market eligible.
Yeah, we may be having a conversation about that one offline. So I think we'd likely need to know, Tina, about whether this is a new development opportunity or ongoing business for that one. So is it something that's done every year? Like we did say, entrance to a trade show, a one-time entrance to a trade show is an eligible cost. So we'd likely just need to know a bit more about that one to understand if it's like a
New
commercial
business.
type of operation and it's new and that's a new market for you, it likely could fit. If it's ongoing business and you've done it every year, it might not. So that's where sometimes we just need to have that longer conversation to better understand where it would fit.
Okay.
Let's see. For other intakes, those dates slide into the future. We have FTE by next intake. Oh, my screen just moved on me.
But our eligible project would no longer need a longer time horizon for this intake project. So the period for the intake, I think that's the question. So in the future intakes, will the time frame for the projects be different? I think that's correct. Adam, you can correct me.
And I can just jump in here. Maybe what's helpful is on the main ROD program website, which I believe Kelly's been linking to, if in the regular chat, the dates for future intakes are posted. So intake 3, for instance, will be from August 17th to October 1st, 2026. And intake 4 will be January 18th, 2027 to February 25th, 2027. So to answer your question directly, Adam, yes, the dates would correspondingly slide out as the intakes dates change as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Callie, I'm not sure whether you can click the link that we're showing here. Somebody has asked, how do I find out about a community session? So we've got it linked on here. It's, immediately following this one at 11 p.m. today or 11 a.m. today. So you might be really tired of listening to Crystal and I if you join that one as well. But if Callie, if you can put the link in the chat. So if you have joined this one, but you're really should be community development, you're welcome to do that. And the same thing will apply. If you can't attend, we're going to record it. We'll share the information with everybody that that signs up for it as well. Oh yeah, right there. So if you can sign up for that, the community one at that the ROD program page. Okay, let's see here. Do we have? Oh, I think we're through the questions. Is that? Oh, there we go. And that one more came in. Yeah, Jen, I think and I'd have Steve, Patrick, if he wants to read the question in the chat as well. I think that your analysis is quite accurate. So, the renovations to accommodate, unless it's related to accessibility, would not be eligible. Equipment purchase not eligible. Employee costs, but there's no employee costs covered at all in this program. But the marketing expenses would be eligible. The new signage, it's more the design. So like if it's a big, and I think there was a question that I saw somewhere around like if we're going to purchase a digital sign for outside of our building, would that be eligible? That's really a major capital cost, right? A new sign. So if you had designing or printing type things like banners, that sort of thing would be eligible. But as soon as it moves into that more of a capital expense, it wouldn't be eligible. Patrick, did I cover that all?
And I give it a little thumbs up. I think Jen's
Oh,
captured it completely accurately, her perception, and I have nothing to add to your further explanation.
okay, perfect. Okay, so at that time, I'm just going to, and I did move around on the slides a little bit here, but that's okay. Do you want to, so I have put up a evaluation, so we are looking for feedback, but we're also happy to remain on and keep asking questions if people have questions they would like to have answered during this session. We hope that this helped give you a better understanding of the types of projects that are eligible, as well as the type of expenses, and as well understanding whether you were eligible or not as a business to apply to this program. Was any closing comments you wanted to add, Crystal?
No, I think just really important to have a look at the application. Make sure you get that business application link. Have a look through it. It's not too long, and then have a read through of those program guidelines. That's a really important piece. And when we're coaching communities and businesses, that is what the resources that we use to help support you through your project. But if you decide to book a coaching call, think about what is the project that you're doing? How much is this going to cost? What are those activities? So think about that before stepping into your coaching call so that you can share with the advisor what it is you're hoping to do, and then we can help guide you along the way.
Yeah, and I'm just sharing what the application looks like. You will save this onto your system before you start to fill it out. You don't want to fill it out in that sort of web type format. So you could see there's a page with your contact information where you talk what type of business ownership, you attest to the different eligibility requirements that the program has by checking the boxes. And then you describe your business, tell us about your business, tell us the title of your project, describe what you hope to accomplish through the project, where it's taking place in Ontario. You've got your different project types. So depending on what type of projects you're going to do, you would check whichever ones are relevant or not relevant. You tell us which of these outcomes you think you will achieve with the project, when you're going to start, when you're going to finish. You've got your work plan that Crystal walked through earlier as well. So your different cost categories. These are drop downs, so they align with those eligible costs that you saw in ineligible costs at the back. So you can click whichever ones you're going to do. You just do a short description of what it is, when it starts, when it finishes, and those costs. That goes forward into this chart. Whatever number you total here goes over here. And then your applicant, you put that'll automatically populate from whatever you put in the front. And then you click whether you're completed and whether you're a quote. So that's not a long application for businesses, but we hope that just by seeing it, it helps you again understand what's expected of you. Okay, we don't look like we have any further questions, so we would ask if you could take time to just fill out our evaluation. That's really helpful for us. We learned last year that people preferred to have, or our last intake, the business session separate from the community development. So we did change. We had heard that the chat was distracting to people when there was lots of things going on in there. So we've tried to tone that down a little bit and just provide some resources there. You will get your follow-up email within 24 hours. That'll have the links to the slides. It'll have links to all the guidelines in the application as well as the recording. Okay, any further questions? Doesn't seem to be any more.
No, thanks everyone, and good luck with your applications.
Yeah.